I deeply believe that the mother wound is connected with money, and the relationship with the mother is deeply connected to our relationship with money. And the reason why is because your connection to your mother is your connection to life, your connection to the life giving force.
Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And welcome everybody to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast Show. Oh my goodness, you've got to be tuning in. Do you not want to allow yourself to receive the riches that you are? Don't you not want to allow yourself? You do want to, right? You do. We got to be in the affirmative. Oh my God, I'm already negating. So we've got to realize that so fast that we can negate, we can go into lack, we can allow ourselves to dip down in our energy. Instead, what we want to do is we want to get aligned with the divine, which is what this show is all about. And that is why I'm so excited to have our guest on today, because it is about getting aligned with that divine in a deep, deep way, not only in your heart, but within your mind, and especially about the thing that we try to push away as much as anything. I feel it's right up there, money. Yeah, believe it or not, you're pushing it away from you. And I believe our guests will help you to realize that. And instead of pushing it away, allow yourself to be magnetic for money to come into your life. Truly, I know a lot of times it's not like, oh, cool, yeah, sure, right. But literally, she approaches it through a whole different way than the typical kind of money coach does, which I love money coaches. But I'm just saying, like she does actually deal with some root causes and processes that allows it to sink in a new way. It truly is different. And I wouldn't say that if it weren't. So, Alyse, I'm so grateful to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. All right. So let's share more about your background briefly. So Alyse Bacine is a breathwork practitioner with 23 years of experience, spiritual mentor, channel, and CEO of Alyse Breeze LLC. She has her master's degree in counseling psychology. I almost picked that. It's you need to be either clinical psychology or counseling psychology. I did the clinical route, but it was close. And certifications in both social emotional learning and mindfulness practices, as well as extensive background in mental health field where she served as a school counselor for 10 plus years. She knows how to nurture people. Received a grant to implement a meditation program at her school. How amazing is that? Knowing that she always wanted to expand her mission of healing familial and ancestral trauma and normalizing meditation and breathwork practices, she opened her own business and quickly became a six-figure mentor. Alyse has been featured in top public publications like Oprah Magazine, Well, and Good and Nylon. She uses her unique healing modality, the Metamorphosis Method, TM, to help spiritually intelligent women transform their current realities to get to their next level selves. Next level selves is a good thing. Her programs are deeply rooted in healing so that women can navigate work, love, and life as powerful leaders without the burden of trauma playing a role in their highest potential. Ugh. Yes, let's release the trauma. All right. Okay, Lisa, I'm so grateful that you're here and just opening that space together with you now. It just like guys, just know that you're held. We've got a heart opening here. We've got an opportunity to allow ourselves to awaken, to another level of connection with source is really what this is ultimately, and expand in the energy that's possible through the portal of the thing we call money, that energy of money that's been created. So it's a good thing. Money's a good thing. So let's get into that. I think at least the number one thing, because I was just interviewed the other day on a big show and everything, and I was asked about money because that was our topic too. What is the deal with money? Because spiritual people often have programming that's like avoided like the plague. Yeah, those same people are like, I wish I'd make more money, right? So where does that all come from, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, there's two main things that I think are really important. Actually, three. I have my three-step process that I
Sure,
teach
sure,
on how to shift this, right?
sure.
Because yeah, it is just it's such a triggering topic, right? I feel like people are always feeling some type of way about money, even when we bring it up, right? It's like, I want more of it, or it's bad, or whatever it is, there's something around it, right? So I have worked with so many women and men at this point around this topic. And there's a few things that I've come to understand. And yes, my approach is different than probably a lot of what you've heard. A lot of spiritual teachers teach about money being a masculine energy and, looking at your relationship with the masculine. And I'm not saying that's not true. However, I deeply believe that the mother wound is connected with money, and the relationship with the mother is deeply connected to our relationship with money. And the reason why is because your connection to your mother is your connection to life, your connection to the life giving force, right? And money is very much a life giving force. We need money to live, whether we want to admit it or not. Some people don't want that to be the reality, but it is the reality. And we have to work in the reality, right? So, money is a life giving force. It connects us to the energy of life, the energy of the universe, the bounty of the universe, right? And that's what our connection with our mother represents as well. So, the way that I see it, anything that we did not get from our relationship with our mother, we will project that wounding onto money. So, an example of this would be, if you did not feel like your mother supported you, if you didn't feel like she showed up for you and was there for you, you probably will not feel supported by money. If you were always if your mother was chaotic or narcissistic and she was always making it about her or always blaming you, and you were always bracing for the next chaos or the next drama that was going to happen, most likely when you're going to open your bank account, you're bracing for something, to see something terrible, or you're bracing for disaster, or you're bracing for chaos. So I have seen with so many people that this deeper level of wounding around feeling unconditionally loved, around feeling unconditionally supported, around feeling held and safe in the world, they will project that onto money, because money is our lifeline, our connection to life. So, I think that this has to be looked at. And it's not about, we don't need to now go spend 5 years going down a rabbit hole of your relationship with your mother. It is as simple as, what did you not get from her? What was missing? What do you feel like you needed that you didn't get? And then looking at how that is represented in your relationship with money and how you're projecting that onto that relationship. So you can be aware and you can start to shift the way that you're relating to it. Now, you obviously can go deeper in the sense that if you've never done any work around your mother wound, I have other tools and places you can go to do that deeper work, to do some of the inner child reconciliation and movement of the emotional energy. However, once you're aware of what the pattern is, all you have to do is be aware of it and shift it, and then naturally shift your relationship with money. So that's the first thing, is we really want to be looking at that relationship and what you didn't get, and what is the parallel between that and your relationship with money, because that will give you a lot of insight as to basically what you're expecting, right? What are you expecting to happen here? Because you're most likely going to be expecting the same thing that happened with your mother. And then we get to have a very deep level of healing, because as we know, money is neutral, but we will project onto it whatever that wound is. But it's also an opportunity to heal and reconcile that wound if we know how to utilize it as such, right? So we want to be able to then say, okay, well, if I was always supported, if I was always unconditionally loved and connected to life, how would I feel? And subsequently, how would I feel about money, right? Because they are very much related. And if you can begin to cultivate a relationship to money where you do feel connected to it, supported by it, trusting of it, and you don't feel afraid, that you will have a very different experience and money will start showing up for you because you are expecting it. Now, in the next piece, and I mentioned fear, is, one thing I've noticed from myself and so many people I've worked with is most people are operating from a place of fear when it comes to money. And a lot of these fears that people have around money aren't even theirs necessarily. They are bigger archetypal and physiological, psychological imprints from ancestral and other lifetimes, past lifetimes, and I teach a program called Past Lives and Money where I teach you how all of these past life archetypal energies impact the way that you look at money. But in specifically in the process I'm talking about, we look at past life fears around money. And this is huge because a lot of people don't realize that, yes, we might have stories around money based on the way that our parents did it or based on what we saw, but it's really goes so much deeper around the programming and the wounds that we all endured, throughout the lines of time, right? So whether that was living in extreme poverty, or whether that was the fear of what other people would think if you did have money, and so for so long money was looked at as like it was actually virtuous to not have money, right? Especially if you're a spiritual person. And there were so many spiritual teachers who took a vow of poverty, or who just lived on like whatever people were handing out to them, and those imprints live on in our energy field, in our the memories that our soul has. So most likely we can be blocking money from those perspectives without even realizing it, and having these deeper fears around, what if there's not enough? Because that's one of the biggest fears that I think has been imprinted throughout lifetime after lifetime, is not being enough, not having enough. I'm not enough, right? That deep rooted scarcity and fear of, essentially not surviving because you're not going to have enough. And I think that on a very deep level, a lot of people, most people are operating from this place. And what happens is when you're operating from a place of fear when it comes to money, you end up creating the very thing you're trying to avoid. And I have experienced this myself.
Yeah.
When I started my business, even though, yes, I did a lot of things that were courageous, there was an underlying fear that I had around like, oh my gosh, what if I lose all my clients and I lose all my money? Like literally that was like this underlying thing that was like not in my conscious awareness, but if I felt really deep into it on an energetic level, it was coloring every situation, every decision, every action that I made, and just like the general lens that I was looking at my business through. And that was actually not a contribution to my purpose, my greater work in the world. If I'm afraid of losing a client, so that means I don't, share something that could be of value to many other people, or I don't show up in the way that I and know that I'm meant to, that's actually not in service to other people. So I became very aware of like this deeper level of fear that was running the show. That was actually not anything that I experienced in this lifetime, but it was more one of these deeper, what I call archetypal energies that we all carry that has to be looked at. So I think that this is definitely like the next step in the process, is we have to look at these deeper fears and where we might be just projecting these ideas unknowingly of scarcity, of there not being enough, of money being a bad thing, or what are people going to think of me if I, all of a sudden now have all of this money? What am I going to lose? Am I going to lose, my place in the community or whatever it is? These deeper, like, not that that matters now, but these are those deeper imprints from other lifetimes. So we really have to look at that if we want to be able to look at the full picture of what is actually happening when it comes to our money blocks. Because, a lot of the traditional teachings around this are great, but I feel like we don't always look at like the whole picture of what is actually happening and these deeper things that can really impact the way that we see money without even realizing it.
Yeah.
And then go ahead. Did you want to say something? I know I'm just going on and on here.
It happens sometimes on the show every once in a while. No problem. I mean, I'm just taking it all in. I was just gonna say, I mean, because you were making, good money compared to what people normally are able to do their first year in business, right? Like, psh,
Yeah.
boom, and you've experienced that, in past lives, perhaps, and or whatever connected with it you're pointing to, and then everybody's gone, the money's gone, like that was the trauma, right? So like that carries over, but so it's not just about like, man, I gotta get money. Okay, you got the money, but now you're still like afraid all the time. It's you're going to be a fraud, or everybody's going to leave you, or whatever the fears are for people. So this whole thing about like really strengthening your connection with source and with money, it's not just about like I'm trying to gobble up all this money, because I always tell people, the show I was on, I talked about lack and fear, and I said, lack is the biggest thing, really. I mean, ultimately, I said there's so many things, that was one of the biggest ones, ultimately, and because you can boil it down to that, because something's not enough, right? So something's not enough, and there's not enough money and all that stuff to go around, and but yet we have all these different experiences that we've had, that even if you have the money and you've transcended the sense of lack consciously, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, but something happened, now it's gone, and so that imprinting, stays with you, and then you don't want to experience it in the first place because you don't want to experience the trauma again. So I just wanted to highlight that piece you pointed out, because even myself, as someone who's talked a lot about money, I've talked a lot about the relationship with money and everything, but this is a somewhat of a unique, take on money, because that's not something everybody talks about. Some of the people I've seen that are millionaires, and you've seen it too, they're some of the most lack-minded people around money that I've ever seen. Like it's almost
Mhm.
like, oh, you're in lack with a little money, and now you have more. Now you have more lack. Like people would never think that that could be true, but it is. It's 1 billion% true. More money doesn't necessarily make you feel more abundant. It can make you feel just the opposite, more insecure, more fearful. But maybe more money's the cure, baby. Like, no, you don't deal with these things. It doesn't matter how much money you make, you're going to just feel worse. So you have to clear these foundations. So I just wanted to really hit that for now. There's so much, you hit a bunch of angles right away on your three keys, but I just wanted to jump in there and share that piece right away.
Yeah, no, it is so important. And it's really not about the amount of money. And I think that's such a great point, because I've seen this with myself and with so many people where they're like, okay, well, I'll feel better when I have this amount of money in the bank account, or I'll feel better when I get this paid off. And not to say that like those things aren't true, but that's not the answer to you shifting the way that you feel. And I think that that's really important for people to understand, because especially having worked with so many people at this point, it's really funny like what constitutes a lot of money for some people versus other people. You know what I mean? It's very interesting, because somebody could be in scarcity like you said, or be feeling afraid because of the amount of money they had, but their threshold is way higher than somebody else who maybe, if they have way less than that, that's a lot for them and they're feeling good. So it's really not about the amount of
Mhm.
money. It's about the way that you're relating to it. And I really do believe that once you shift the way that you're relating to it, then it gets to easily come in. And like I have because of all of like the work that I've done and the different ebbs and flows that I've had with money, it's really allowed me to have this level of neutrality around it that is such a gift, because I feel like people can get so like they let money take them on like an emotional roller coaster ride of, oh my gosh, well, I can only feel comfortable if I have this amount of money in the bank, or oh my gosh, if this happens with my money, then I'm gonna feel horrible about myself. And they really connect or conflate their sense of self-worth with how much money they have. And that is a huge mistake, because you will never get anywhere when you're operating from that place. And, that is related back to what I said around these deeper fears, where it's like we confuse our ideas of us not being enough with money, and then we're relating our worthiness to that, and that is actually really unhealthy, and it doesn't get you to where you want to go. So it really starts with your mind and shifting that. And once you do that, you start to just see how money just starts to show up for you. But it's about changing the way that you feel on the inside first, which is, what I feel so passionately about teaching people, because we really still think it's outside of us, and it's not.
Right.
And it's really about the way that you're relating to it. And then as you start to relate to it differently, it starts to show up for you differently. The same as if you were in a relationship with like a romantic partner. If you start to relate to them differently, they're going to start relating to you differently. And if you start seeing them as, the highest version of themselves, and you start having this like very elevated relationship with them, they will respond. So it's the same exact thing with money.
Right.
uh yeah, so I think those two pieces around the mother wound and the past life fears are just really huge pieces that we can't ignore
Right.
around this.
Right. I wanna, yeah, definitely make sure we hit. There's always so many questions I have, but let's get into it, because I could just go on and on about what you just. We could really dig in there. But what I want to get into is, yeah, where all these feelings of um disconnection come in. With all the trainings and certifications I've done for people to be money practitioners or whatever, like all this stuff I've done too, in my own way, but I haven't spent a lot of time on one of the aspects at all that you've brought up. In the way that you bring it up is with the what mother wound. So I'd love to tune in there, and everybody's going to want to hear about that. It's one of your three keys, three aspects. So tell us more. Some people may have never even heard of this. I mean, it is sort of a thing
Oh,
people have
okay.
heard of, but not everybody's heard of that. So explain more about what it is, and then we could talk about how it affects our relationship with money a little bit more.
Okay, cool. So yes, and thank you for that, because the mother wound and like this family trauma stuff is my like language. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, everyone knows about the mother wound. So yeah. Okay. So basically, the way I would define the mother wound is just your relational patterns and dynamics with your mother that informed the way that you see yourself and the world. And then on top of that, your mother will also be a place where you tune in on a level of consciousness. So if you think about when you're developing in your mother's womb, you are literally being developed from her cells. So you are taking on her consciousness on a cellular level. So you will take on your mother's psyche, your mother's consciousness, and operate from that place until you get conscious and shift it. So the way that I characterize the mother wound is there's really two things happening here. There's the things that you took on from her trauma, her level of consciousness, the way that she sees the world, the way that she feels about herself, the way that she feels about the world. And then also the identity that you built, meaning the way that you see yourself and the world based on your relationship with her, meaning the way that she interacts with you and what you did or did not get from that relationship. So, and this can be a little bit challenging for, if you've never really unpacked this before, because people will tend to take this literally in the sense of like, oh, my mother and I had a great relationship or whatever. But there's always like a lot deeper layers going on. Like, for example, if you feel like you and your mother had a great relationship, but she just, there's certain things she does that just like really trigger you or really annoy you, and then you feel guilty about it. This is common with everybody, I feel like. There's usually a deeper thing going on that's causing that trigger, because a trigger is usually telling you there's some kind of wounding that is desiring to be healed or reconciled through that trigger, right? So there's a lot of underlying things that can be going on within that relationship, because a lot of the relational dynamics and energetic patterns with your mom will be pre-verbal, meaning they imprinted onto you before you were at a developmental age where you could create cognitive thoughts. So a lot of it will be in the form of physiological imprints or energetic imprints. So you will experience it more as like a feeling or an impulse versus a thought or a memory.
Mhm.
So, there sometimes it can't be as easy to figure out sometimes, because of that, because of that. But a lot of, what people needed from their mothers couldn't give them, simply because they weren't at an emotion had they didn't have the emotional capacity to give it to them. So
Right.
meaning, for parents, as a parent, you can really only give your kid you can't give your kid something that you don't have, right? So if you aren't able to love yourself in a certain way, or you don't have a certain level of acceptance within yourself, then even though you love your child, you're only going to be able to go so far when it comes to fully showing up, being present for them, and loving them. And yes, you might love them, but also parents will project their unhealed wounds and trauma onto their kids. So, usually there's a lot of that happens, that as children, we don't realize that's what's happening. Obviously, we just know that it doesn't feel good. So there'll be ways that your mother related to you that just might not have felt supportive to you, might not have felt good to you, or you might have felt like you were not seen for who you are, not acknowledged for who you really are, not supported in being who you are, or you might have felt like you weren't allowed to be who you truly are. You had to be this version of you that was accepted by, your mother and your father, because that is the only thing that they could hold as who you are, right? So a lot of
Right.
people will feel like they're not fully acknowledged and appreciated for who they are. So that is, a lot of what can be involved in the mother wound, right? And we can take this, as wide and deep as we want. And like I said, I have other resources beyond this money stuff to go deeper and clear that. But for the purposes of money, I think it's very important just to look at what was the thing that you did not get, and that you might not be able to answer that immediately. And that's why I have my tools like breath work to help you access the subconscious so that you can find that out, but quick things that most people can probably relate to are, not feeling emotionally supported, not feeling acknowledged, not feeling like you were good enough, because a lot of times we'll seek approval from our parents, and we'll be like, okay, well, if I just do this thing, then they'll finally think I'm good enough. And what happens is we start to live in this perpetual state of, well, if I just do this one more thing, then they'll finally think I'm good enough. And that will go on into adulthood, right? Where we're still kind of perpetually trying to gain approval, even if it's not necessarily our parents anymore. It will be projected onto, our boss or our partner or whoever, because we're still living in that pattern of that unreconciled need to be approved of or to be recognized or acknowledged. So a lot of times we will project that onto, our whatever relationship that we're in, right? So those are just some things that, can potentially be results of the unhealed relationship with your mother. And then to bring it back to the money stuff, like I said, that relationship is going to be foundational, right? So especially what we'll see for anybody who had a mother who wasn't there, whether physically or emotionally or, in any capacity, then they're going to have an abandonment wound. And that could also be projected onto money. And that could look various ways. When we have the energy of abandonment, It can show up in actually us creating relationships where people abandon us creating, friendships where we feel abandoned, or us creating relationships where people might be there physically but not emotionally. Or the other way it can show up, and this is very common, is self abandonment. So, what that can look like is we just don't show up for ourselves, or if we intend to show up, we show up for a little bit and then we go unconscious and abandon ourselves in whatever it is that we wanted to do. And a lot of times this will be unconscious, and the person won't even realize they're doing it, because what I always say and what is true is that we treat ourselves the way our parents treated us until we become conscious and shift out of it. So if your imprint for your closest relationship is that the person leaves you, you will create situations at times where you leave yourself or other people leave you. And then the way that could look around money is that you're either living in a way that you are bracing for money to leave you, or you abandon the relationship with money, meaning you go unconscious with it and you just don't, you're not aware of what's going on. Maybe you don't even pay attention and you don't want anything to do with it. It can show up in various ways. It will just always be surrounding that abandonment energy. And then subsequently, that can lead to, deciding that you're not good enough or there's something wrong with you because that parent left. Right. So, there's so many different ways that it can show up, and it's important to go down this, like, explore this for yourself, because it's going to show up for you in different ways.
Yeah, I feel people are catching on. I know what it's like to be on the other side when we're explaining something, right? And I just want to be clear. Like, I think people are hearing what you're laying down. Like
Okay, good.
for any concern you have about that, because I'm intuitive, right? I know what's going on. So, but anyway, people are hearing you. I know it. I can feel it. So, absolutely. And so yeah, I think about that. I mean, my mom's still alive and everything, so I'm like, oh, what if she listened to this? I start talking some stuff, but but I want to say, I mean, and that's the funny thing about it is that there's that sense of, well, I don't even want to look at that because I wouldn't want to, dishonor my mom and say that she did anything wrong, like what a horrible child I am, what an ingrate I would be, and all that stuff. So I think
Yeah.
also an issue there, but when I get past that, and we can come back to that if you want to, but once we get past that, I just look at it objectively. Yeah, my mom gave me everything, gave me life, and in a sense, right? And we came through her cells and all that stuff. And then all the unconditional love at one level, one deep level, I got, and all the nurturance, all the hours, all the endless devotion. Okay, yes, 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 yes. And then you just have to look at some of the things that are going on, some of the energies, the thought forms and stuff that might be going on, when you're growing up and from your mom. And we'll just leave it to mom for a moment, but that, yeah, the thing is you coming through mom, like, there is that at that level a deeper imprinting, and that way there is a deeper imprinting from mom. And it makes a lot of sense what you said, like and I totally appreciate you as background in psychology with all that and the counseling, like me, because the way you talk, I'm like, yeah, this is reminds me of myself in that regard a little bit. But yeah, so because I was thinking about some of the things, because I do think about it, obviously, and work on it. When it occurs to me that it's part of the mix for me when I think about my mom and stuff, I think about some of my sticking points. I'm like, well, they made this amount of money, and then how much have I made versus what they made, and how did their business do versus what my business is doing? If I were to go beyond that, what would that be like? And my mom already, and I would say this to her face, so I'm not concerned if she hears this. Is like she does not really acknowledge me for in this one way, and that the work I do, like she doesn't fully believe in what I do. I mean, I'm speaking for her, but based on everything she says, I think it's true. And so she's not fully behind it. She never says, boy, that's really cool, or man, you've really done great, or she never done that in the regard of career, in business and stuff. So for me, I think subconsciously I'm thinking, because even if we say "F you, mom" or whatever, that stuff that I wouldn't be saying that, by the way, but I don't think. But But, but for us that go there, I'm like, I don't care. It's like you do. I mean, part of you always wants to, especially please your mom and, and your parents, but you want to please them. And so you're thinking, what is finally going to get me acknowledged? What do I need to do? What the hell? I got to make $1 billion in order for you to finally say something like, wow, you've really done something incredible here, with in that regard in your life. I quite honestly, unless I got like extremely wealthy, then I think finally my mom would probably say something because I'd probably be buying her even more things and stuff. Then she probably finally I'd probably get a little bit of more acknowledgement, but it would never quite be there likely, like in the level that I want, unless I really asked for it from her. Then she probably might come along, which might be something I could consider. But I could just see, like we were saying, like there's so many levels and layers to this. So I guess what I was wondering is, like, in my mind, I'm like, well, this could be infinitely complex, but is it really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a billion, disconnecting points for me with mom and money and all this stuff, and or is it more simple than that when you go to help people? I mean, is it like you get one piece out and unravels the whole thing sometimes a lot, or obviously some people are happy with money. I've never directly worked with a mother wound, right? If we get to total
Mhm.
truth.
Yeah.
But so tell us more about like how that works. Is this infinitely complex, all these pieces, all these thought forms, all these imprintings, or is it more simplified than that?
It's both.
Okay.
So I think that, yes, it can be very simple. And one of the things that I really like to tell people and that I firmly believe is that we don't need to go looking for things. Like when there's something that you need to look at regarding your mom or whatever else, you'll know. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you've experienced this. Like when there's something that you need to look at, reconcile, heal, it's in your face. Like, right? So you don't need to go digging around trying to figure out every single thing about your mother. But for the purposes of this, I've kept it very simple in the sense of like, what did you not get? And that energetic pattern will reflect the money relationship or the lack of that you feel, or what you feel is wrong, quote unquote, or not enough. Right. So, for the purposes of this, yes, it's very simple. However, along your healing journey, if you're someone who decides to continue to grow and expand, there will be points where there will probably be other things that present themselves for you to heal and reconcile around this relationship and around other relationships too, and you can do that when the time comes. But for the purposes of really shifting your relationship to money, I think we can keep it very simple. And if it's something that, it feels complicated to someone just to say, what didn't I get? Then, there's a way to get more support around it, obviously, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of this, yes, it is simple. It's just about looking at that relationship and then drawing the parallels and making the connection and understanding the nature of what money is and how you're currently relating to it, and then how you can relate to it differently based on that understanding.
Right. Right. Well, that's helpful, right? So it's kind of like what's hot for you, right? What's more top of mind sometimes, right?
Mhm.
So that you would know, have a sense of like, yeah, this is up for me, or that when you're busy, like you guide people through breath work, for example, and we're going to talk more about that soon. As they're doing in the breath and they're focusing on some things, all of a sudden like, whoa, oh my God, I just realized something, right? It's going to come
Yeah,
to you,
totally.
keep it open, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the breath will move energy without you even realizing
Mm.
what's happening. Like I have had so many people say to me, "Oh my gosh, after your breath work session, I felt this huge ancestral trauma clear, or I felt this huge perspective shift." And, they weren't even aware of exactly what was happening, but then afterwards they experienced the result or the clearing or whatever it was. So, there are tools like that, which is why I use breath work, obviously. And my whole breath work modality is because it creates shifts on that deeper level, right? And we don't always have to know exactly what's happening or figure it out, unless we're meant to know, and then it will come into your conscious awareness. So that is another great tool to use for the purposes of this.
That's great. That's liberating. That makes me breathe easier here. Ah, I don't need to figure it all out, right?
No, you really don't. It's just about shifting the relationship, and then the last piece of like the three steps that I have is about creating your own reality around money. Like, I think it's important to understand, even based on the things that I've shared around your mother wound and the past life fears, it's like we have been programmed to believe that money is so many things and there's only a certain way to play the game. And that's actually not true. And if you get to write your own story about how you relate to money, then money gets to be whatever you decide that it is. It is
Mhm.
an infinite resource. It is something that you get to decide how you want to feel about it, how you want to relate to it, what you want to do with it, why it's important to you. And I think if you really start to be conscious in creating a new relationship with it that feels good to you instead of projecting all of this other stuff onto it, then you get to completely rewrite the game, and you create your own journey with it, and you look at it the way you want to look at it, you use it the way you want to use it, and there's no like weirdness or guilt or shame or fear or whatever. It just gets to be a thing that is a resource for you that helps you live the life that you want to live in the most liberating and authentic way, if you decide that it is that.
Yeah, for me, I feel like it will leave a legacy type of thing. That's everybody talks about that a lot, but also just the impact it's going to have even while I'm alive. To allow myself, people say, well, you reach more people, you'll have a bigger ripple effect. There's truth to that 100%. But also just even my immediate family, my daughters and whatnot, they're looking at what dad's doing. Well, how's it working out with dad? What he's, and then they're, because everybody like thinking about their own life in comparison to the parents. I mean,
Mm.
you mentioned mom, but like both parents, right? In this case, I'm the
Totally. Yeah.
one generating revenue and whatnot and money, is so they're looking at me, well, how's it going with dad? And so they look at the different aspects of that. So I'm like, okay, well, I want to continue to go down the path of it being a even better relationship with money and life and everything, and expand the energy tremendously, so that I almost want to tear up, so that they never feel like money's got to be this heavy hard thing, like I don't
Totally.
want to leave my kids with that. So I think
I
that, to
totally
me, that's
agree.
what's so compelling. It's like you could try to avoid the money thing and everything, but it's there with people. And if you don't address it one way or another, it's just going to be sitting there, and then it's sitting there for, your kids and, generations that come. So you really, because I was thinking about this, I'm like, who had a great relationship with money and had a lot of money in my family? Nobody ever has that I know of. Maybe they did okay, right? But it was
Right.
expanded. So I'm like, I've decided recently, I'm like, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to go way beyond
Yeah.
what anybody else has done that I know of anyway. Not that I'm
No,
trying to show off. It's just I want to be that transmission.
I completely agree. And I think about this a lot, just like even in the way I talk to my own kids about money. And I think about this because my son is really funny. He always wants to know how much everything costs. Like, oh, like, stuff that's not related to him at all. Like, how much does the house cost? How much does this cost? How much money do you make in your business? What, like, he wants to know everything. And I struggle sometimes because I'm like, do I just like tell? I don't want to like lie to him or make it be like it's like a secret, or like don't talk. Do you know how so many people are like, "Oh, don't talk about money, like that's like taboo or weird." Like I don't want him to feel that way. So, and but then I'm like, do I just tell him? I don't want him like going to his friends at school and being like, my mom makes this much money. You know what I mean? So it's like
My mom just got a 100K sale or something like that.
yeah, like I don't want that either. So it's just an interesting thing of really thinking about how I want to portray it to my kids so that they think of it in a much more expansive way than I ever did. And like, really, as we do like what you're talking about and what I'm talking about, we really clear that ancestral and past life trauma around money and the way that we were, felt wounded by it or felt afraid of it. So I think it's just such an amazing opportunity to elevate our consciousness around wealth and around money and create it as something that is completely different that we can relate to in a much different way. And I feel like it's just kind of part of the healing and the transformation that's happening on the planet,
Mhm.
because the money holds such an energetic like burden for people, and a thing that has been used to control people and make people feel less than and all of that. So if we can heal that and shift that, then it really just up levels the consciousness on the planet, and it's healing for so many people, and it will have a huge ripple effect.
Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free meditate, make money meditation today. Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, money is something you can act like it's not important. You can try to ignore it too. Just find yourself in a money conversation, like if you live with people at all, like in your own like if you're all by yourself, maybe you don't have to talk about money very often, but you still come up in your mind all day long anyway. But yeah, you're going to be having money conversations. They're going to constantly come up. Well, let's
Yeah, and
ignore.
it
Well,
doesn't.
let's go here. Let's do this. Let's do that. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Like if you don't have ample amount of money, you're gonna be like, all right, how's my bank account? Can I do that? Can I do this? Can I do what can I do? Like
Exactly.
so
Totally.
to be able to breathe
Yeah.
easy, right? And to feel like I can just be at peace with just trusting my guidance, recently like been really feeling great about this with Deb. Like she'll be like, well, let's do this, let's do that. Things that she normally would be like, I don't know if we have the money to do that stuff.
Mhm.
No, we can't do it, not until. And like she's starting to even like lead the way more. Like no, okay, let's do that anyway. Let's do that. Let's do this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it all. Like whatever it is that we're
Yeah.
doing, just relaxing. And that comes, is you all the work that, I've done, she's done with money, like it's you start getting in that groove where I'm so expanded now where I'm just like things that before I thought I was gonna be like this egoic triumph to go to the next level and it's gonna be heavy and I'll probably have to work really hard and all that stuff. I'm just like, no, I just see it. I can see that I'm not saying I'm going to get it done 100 million%, but I'm, so to speak, the numbers and whatnot. But like, I'm like, I just feel like it's happening. I just feel like
Yeah.
it's happening. And it's just not a matter of can I or can't it. It just feels like it is in process. At least. So it just feels like okay, it's happening. Whereas before, I was like, how do I get there? How do I acquire? And
Right.
feel like this kind of work is what allows that to happen, right? So I'd love to learn more about that. I know like I've had to clear like past life stuff. So I'd love to hear any bits you want to share about that additionally, but that's a whole other show. But like any other little bits on that as we talk more about what you have to offer too. But yeah, I mean the past life stuff, there were we had a lot of money and everybody judged us and they killed us or whatever. Like, I mean, there's so many different ones in
There's
there.
so
It's real.
many.
It's a
Yeah.
real thing. And for me, it's like my relationship with power. I was able to summon a lot of power in certain lifetimes physically and dominate. And so you gotta be perfect and all this stuff. And then, to run into like, yeah, somebody can still take you out though. It doesn't really matter how strong you are. Like to realize there's a deeper strength, right? So it's like part of my soul's journey, and all of it can connect to money without getting into all the depth with me. But like all these things, and they come up as you're in meditation, when you're doing breath work, when you're all doing all these things, and you just start releasing and stuff. So yeah, and then yeah, so anything you want to share about, like, briefly around the past life stuff and how that also starts to get released through like breath work and all that. Like, I'd love to learn about that.
Yeah. So, for the purposes of just, the process that I'm talking about, we're really looking at these deeper fears that don't feel like they are necessarily from you, right? Where it's just kind of like you're impulsively operating from scarcity or lack or not enoughness, right? And it has like this feeling to it of like, it's almost like I can't look at it differently, or it's like this thing that's coming from deep inside of you that feels like it is more of like an energetic imprint versus like a thought or a belief. It's just like, it's almost like a fear of something bad happening, where it's like you can't even necessarily put your finger on it, that can cause us to, contract and hold back and, operate like I was talking about, from that fear of what if I lose everything, or what if all my clients go away? It's like kind of that doomsday kind of
Mhm.
feeling. And I deeply believe that this is one of those things that's very imprinted on the collective from past lifetimes of being in, really terrible traumatic situations, whether it was war or a natural disaster or whatever it was, right? Like that is all imprinted on us and can cause us to, especially when it comes to money and anything having to do with survival and anything having to do with growth, it can cause us to contract in that way. So it's just very important to understand that. And, that's kind of the second step in the process, is really noticing where you're projecting those things onto money. And
Mhm.
then, I also have a program called Past Lives and Money where I go a lot deeper into this from a perspective of just, as a side note, because this one of the things I notice for every single woman that starts a business, there are like 4 or 5 or 6 past life archetypal energies that surface for every single woman who starts a business. So that's why I created Past Lives and Money, because I teach you how to clear those energies. And a lot of those are around like the fear of being seen, the fear of being ostracized, the fear of like what other people are going to think of you. There's a bunch of them. I can't remember all of them right now. But so just to give you an idea, how these things play a part and why they're so important and why we do need to look at them, especially if you feel stuck in these areas, in money and business. So, for the purposes of, my process around money, we just really want to be looking at what are these deeper ways that you are operating from fear or scarcity when it comes to the decisions you're making and the actions you're taking around money, right? Because obviously, these things can be there and they can present themselves. But if we have the awareness and then we don't operate from that place, then that's when it starts to shift. It's not that we just are like, okay, I'm going to like make this go away, because we don't make them go
Good
away.
luck. Yeah, good
They,
luck with that, right?
yeah, but they shift over time as you start to operate from a different place. So when you take action and make decisions that are not coming from those fears or those energies, that's when things start to shift, because you're stepping into possibilities versus operating from fear or constriction.
Right. Right. So, yeah, because again, these different influences are there, and the more connected you can get, because I always say that our biggest, the biggest mother wound, I suppose you could put it that way, is you emanate from source, but you don't trust source. Source, what the hell are you doing with me down here? Like, what the hell's going on? Why'd you put me here? What is going on? Why did you give me everything on a silver platter or whatever, gold platter? Like, why is it so hard? Why?
Yeah,
And
and it's also just like that ultimate like lack of connection,
Mhm.
So yeah, totally. That is definitely a piece of it for sure.
Yeah, so reestablishing that connection, getting faith in that connection, and the emanation of of that connection as it relates to your mom and you know, all the lifetimes you've been through and the ancestral chains and you know, all the programming of lack, you know, taking a bite of that lack, you know. It's like I just said to in one of my groups the other day, I said, you want to know why you're not making money? Just think about all the ways you're killing off the money in your life. Like there, it's so, you know, like there's so many ways we just like, yeah, I'll just get rid of the money. Like by doing this, we don't even realize we're doing it. But if you pay attention, you start seeing what you're doing. Yeah, I guess I did that because that'll definitely make sure I don't make any money or let money in, right? It's like if you think about it, like, you know, it's just there underneath the surface. So things like breath work, you know, that's why I talk about things like meditation too, but like the breath work is a whole nother thing that moves the energy along with you're in a meditative sort of state and it helps you to get in this connection. So I'd love for you to talk more about that. I know you have an offer for the audience today and, you know, resources for people. So I'd love for you to share about that. Is this a good time to do that?
Yeah, for sure. So, well, there's two things I'll say. One, if you want to try my breath work, you can download it. And I gave you the link where
Yes.
people can download that for free. And I have a breathwork session that connects you and activates you into infinite abundance. And there's also some resources with it, just some information and a how-to video so you know how to do it. And that's just such a great way to, if you've been listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't know what some of this stuff is, just connecting in with the breath work, you'll probably have some insight around this. And then also, I have my 14-day container called the Sacred Money Mind, where I'm teaching you this three-step process that we're talking about. And it's actually really fun because it's a Voxer broadcast. So I'm going to be coming into Voxer every single day and sharing teachings with you around these topics. So it's really going to be focused on the mother wound, reconciliation, clearing the past life wounds, and then also creating your own money game and raising your wealth consciousness. So, really, the point is to be able to use your mind as a magnet for wealth by shifting all of these other subconscious thoughts that you're having so that you can use your mind to create what you want to create with money and call in money easily. So, and I love last time I did this program, it was so much fun and people had such a powerful experience. I even had such a powerful experience. I think during the course of that last container, I made like $40,000 or something just in the course of that container because the information and the energy that was coming through me was just so powerful. Because I channel and I'm going to be teaching about these topics, but it's all channeled. So I just like will get the information and then I'm in Voxer and sometimes I'll be in more than once a day, but I'm in there leaving messages for you and then you can listen to them whenever you want. Some people will listen to a bunch in a row, like a podcast kind of. It's really fun. And then what I do is there's a big Q&A at the end. So after all the transmissions are over, you will submit your questions and then we get on a Zoom call and I answer everyone's questions and you can ask follow-up questions and all of that. So it's really fun in that way and it's nice to be able to connect in with everybody after it's over. Um, but yeah, so that's where you'll be learning the three-step process that I shared. Plus, I like to talk. So, you'll be getting some extra stuff too, because I'm always popping in and sharing a bunch of things. Plus, I'll be sending you a breathwork session to your inbox that you can use throughout the duration. And I'll be guiding you on how to use that as well to assist with all of this, like I said, because the breath work is such an important piece for you to move energy and access the subconscious mind so you can start to really tune into what are some of these deeper things that are driving the bus, so to speak, so that you can shift them and really start to use your mind to attract money instead of it working against you.
Yeah. Yes, so we'll put in the links for everything and the show notes and everything. So definitely take advantage of that. The freebie is a no-brainer, right? So go ahead, do the breath work for financial freedom. And then the sacred money mind, the sacred money mind.
Yeah, and we start May 1st and it's only $111. So it's also kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, it's so And 11s are the number. My daughter has a necklace she wears, I think, every single day. It's 111. It's a magical number.
Love it. It is a magical number.
We constantly text each other back and forth. Not, well, constantly. It's throughout a week, probably here and there. But 11:11. It's all, we take pictures and everything.
I
Because
love
I don't know if she sort of got it from me or we're just both connected to 11, probably. But like from a kid, I was always noticing 11. It's like 11, 11. I had no idea what it was about back then. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So anyway, so yeah, it's just 111, guys. It's a magical number. And yeah, I mean, gosh, like just to unwind, just to unwind at another level, have more peace of mind, and to let your frequency upgrade, in so many ways, including with money, especially. That's invaluable. So I really appreciate the offer. Thank you so much. And I know you guys are going to benefit greatly from it. And anything else, Alyse? I mean, what else? Is there any last words of wisdom or guidance you want to share with everybody today?
Yeah, I mean, if anything that we talked about is you feel drawn to it, then just trust that and, try the breath work and, think about the sacred money mind because it really is probably your higher self calling you into a shift. So, I always like to tell people to really listen to what you feel drawn to. I think that's so important because that is your higher self, pointing you in the direction that you're meant to go.
100%. Awesome. Well, I super appreciate you sharing everything today, Alyse. I love connecting with you, having you on the show. Always a pleasure. And especially around, connecting with source and money and all this great stuff. So really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing. And to our listeners, keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time. For listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.